We continue our study in John. We are in chapter 2 today. For those of you who missed last week, it is online, and I do have sheets. Of course, you can get sheets online too, where we had the calling of several of the disciples. Today we are in John 2, and we see the very familiar story of changing water into wine, and also the story of the cleansing of the temple. So it's beginning in John 2, starting in verse 1. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding as well. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, "They don't have any wine." "What has this concern of yours to do with me, woman?" Jesus asked. "My hour has not come." "Do whatever he tells you," his mother told the servants. Now 6 stone water jars had been set there for Jewish purification, and each contained approximately 20 to 30 gallons. "Fill the jars with water," Jesus told them, so they filled them to the brim. Then he said, "Now draw some out, take it to the head waiter," and they did. When the head waiter tasted the water, after it had become wine, he did not know where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. He called the groom and told him, "Everyone sets out the fine wine first, then after people are drunk, the inferior. But you have kept the fine wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee. He revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, stayed with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and stayed there only a few days. All right. Lots of sermons have been done on this one. Lots of stories have been done on this Bible study, things like that. I'm not sure that what we're going to do today is unique, but that's okay. We're going to go over this again. A little bit of a background on Jewish wedding celebration. These things were not your typical, as we would call typical, one day, hey, this was great, they got married celebration. These things would go on for like a week. It was a party for the whole town. I mean, that's what it was. And these are people, and this is a time where there's not a lot to celebrate. There's not a lot of, this is the celebration. I mean, this is it. And the groom would go through town, collect the bride, and return to their home, often taking the longest way possible. Now, curiously enough, the bride didn't always know when the groom was going to show up, henceforth the parable of the 10 virgins that Jesus talks about, where Jesus pulls a story from this culture and this society and applies it to, a kingdom thing. But the couple would have an open house for like a week. And people would come by and they would give them gifts, and they would treat them like royalty. They would and the couple would be in their wedding attire. Think about that. You got to keep your house clean for a week. Okay. But running out of wine is a huge faux pas. This is just an awful thing to occur, that you were supposed to, in this culture of hospitality, that you run out of wine. Okay, I mean, that's just wrong. So I love when the Bible puts in details that are very specific to the occasion. Notice that it says stone jars for purification. It does not say clay jars, because it is possible that the clay jars, according to the rabbis, could become contaminated. And it's those lovely little details that get slipped in that really help you understand that the person who wrote this has a real good understanding, has a complete understanding of the culture and the society they wrote for. Now, Mary's role in this. We don't really know what her role is, but she is aware that the wine has run out, so she's more than just a person who is attending the wedding. I mean, I guess if you were attending the wedding, you might realize that the wine ran out. But she is aware the wine is ran out, and she has the authority to tell the servants what to do. So we don't really know what Mary's role in all this is. a lot of people speculate that she is related somehow to somebody in the family. Contrary to our culture, from what I understand of the Jewish wedding, it is mostly planned by the groom's side, not the bride's side. Ladies, how about that for a change? As long as they're putting the foot in the bill, right? So we don't really know what Mary's role on all this is, but she appears to have some knowledge, maybe some authority in this. It's a little bit unclear. We have no idea who the bride and the groom are. Multiple speculations about it being, a nephew of Mary's or someone like that. I read one that even said it could even have been the Apostle John himself. Now, that's an interesting one. We have no basis for that, other than the fact that he has a very intimate knowledge of what happened. So, continuing on, but let's look at Jesus' reaction, and this is fun. There's been lots of stuff written about Jesus' reaction here. When he addresses Mary, he is addressing her in a formal way, but not an endeared way. Okay? Now, when we read this, in particular in King James, in King James it says, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what do I have to do with thee? Well, that comes across a little harsh. So what he's actually, it would be, the best that I can interpret this would be like if you're in the South and he said, ma'am. It's a sign of respect, but it's not mom. Okay? Understand the distinction between the two. It's not a sign of disrespect of like, woman, what do I have to do with you? That's not that. It's a respectful sign, and that's how if you were in the South, or even sometimes around here, but especially in the South, you address a woman as ma'am. And
like a social and an intimate response.
Right, rather it's a respectful thing. He is actually addressing her politely, but formally. Okay, and that's really what he is saying here, other than saying, in terms of endearment, like, Mom. Mom.
But he is already grown at this time.
He is an adult at this time, that is correct. Some of the other translations on this. King James, Jesus saith unto her, we read this one, Woman, what do I have to do with thee? Christian Standard Bible, what has this concern of yours to do with me, woman? Mounts, which is an interlinear, pretty much a word-by-word translation. Jesus said to her, Woman, what is that to me and you? Notice that now that implies both of them. Before, the couple of the ones we did before only had Jesus in it. Notice that he's now in this one, he says, why is this our problem? Okay?
Mine says, Dear woman, why do you involve me?
Similar.
Yeah.
What version are you in?
Why do you ask such hard questions? It's something like...
It's the Anna version.
It's the New King James version.
New King James, okay?
Yes.
New American Standard, which is similar to a word-for-word translation. Woman, what does that have to do with us? Once again, the plural. Okay?
Messages like that too.
Okay, the message is like that.
Is this any of our business, mother?
Yes. And he uses the word, in message uses the word mother. Okay? New International. Why do you involve me?
Yeah.
Woman, why do you involve me? Once again, it's singular. Right. So we see that this has kind of thrown some of the translators in terms of what exactly he is saying and how he is saying it. Let's take a deep dive. You ready? Okay, great. Yeah, whether or not we're going down this rabbit hole. This one is actually not too much of a rabbit hole. Greek, literal translation. What to me and to you? Okay, the phrase, and I'm not going to pronounce it in Greek, is actually Semitic in origin, which is Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew. It is equivalent to the Hebrew expression that we see in the Old Testament, and it can mean one of two things. Option one, when one person is unjustly bothering another, the injured party could say, "What to me and you?" Meaning, what have I done to you so that you would do this to me? Okay? That's option one. What did I do to you that you brought me into this? Okay, that's essentially what that is. You don't like that option. Okay, well then let's take option two then. When someone, and it gave some references, I won't read the references of where that was used in the Old Testament. Number two, option two, when someone was asked to get involved in a matter that they felt was no business of theirs, they could say of the one asking them, "What to me and to you?" Meaning, that is your business, how am I involved? Which we are seeing in some of the translations. Okay, why are we getting involved in this? And there's some options, and it talks about in there where it gets used. There's a couple places in the Old Testament where this phrase is used in that way. Same phrase. It just depends on your situation and how you're using it. Okay, option one implies hostility. Anna said she didn't like it. Option two merely implies disengagement. This is not my problem. Sounds like a person I used to work with. Most people believe that it is the second more than the first, though there are a few Greek fathers early on in the early church who felt that he was rebuking Mary for her getting involved in things she shouldn't be involved in. Take or leave it however you wish to go, because we can't prove either one. A paraphrase would be, how can this matter that concerns you be of mutual interest to us, is probably the best way to paraphrase option two on this. And Jesus' reply next is, "My hour has not come yet," or some of the translations will say, "My time has not come yet." Okay, now this is where Larry gets off onto version 3 or 4, depending upon which order we're looking at, Aaron. And this one's not terribly, I didn't really find anyone else that talked about this, but it really kind of got into me when I read it. Because John, when he uses the word hour, "My hour has not come," he uses it as a symbol for the redeeming work. It's not necessarily a fixed time where I am crucified. Okay, when John says, "My hour has not come," and he refers to that, my hour, whatever, he is referring to the redeeming work of God through the cross. He is not saying 12 o'clock on Sunday or Friday or whatever it is, I'm going to be crucified. Continue on with these thoughts. This is, as I said, this is a Larryism. Take or leave it as you want. I have to disclaim that.
Did you call it Larryism?
Yes, I called it a Larryism. John, as I said, and so when he says, what does this, put the two phrases together, what does that have to do with us? It is not my hour. And what struck me about that was, I felt that like Jesus was saying, this is not why I came to earth. This is not my calling, not my job, for lack of a better phrase. I don't want to particularly use that word. I came to earth to save earth, not do party tricks. That's Larryism, okay? But it will be the first miracle. And that's how it kind of struck me was, he's not being rude, he's not putting her off and saying it's not my time, because he does the miracle anyway. He says, I didn't come to do party tricks. I came to save the world. You look at his list of miracles, and that got me to thinking about it. You look at his list of miracles. And he doesn't do party tricks. Okay, how else do you say it? Okay, there have been a lot of sermons, Bible studies about this particular text, some things that you can pull from it. the wine from Jesus is far superior to anything the world has to offer. What did he say? It was the best wine. Okay? Wasn't just garbage stuff. Also, look at the quantity that he produces. It's a lot of wine. Okay. And essentially, you can draw from that not only is it the superior wine, that the wine from Jesus is not only superior, it is also inexhaustible. Kind of have to put that in quotes because 120 gallons of wine is a lot of wine. One of the other people I read, Barclay, if you ever read Barclay, he's got some interesting things to say from time to time. Barclay says, notice how many jars there are. It says there's 6. Now in Jewish numerology, what is 6? Man, in perfection. Some people, Barclay in particular, is saying maybe there wasn't really 6. Maybe John is introducing a symbol here that is saying that the Jewish purification was not going to save you, but Jesus' new wine is. Okay? Well, can't prove or disprove it, but it's food for thought. Mary's faith, do whatever he says. We circle back around to that at the end. Okay. So that's kind of the cleansing of the water and the wine and kind of some different views on some of the things of that. Okay, the Jewish Passover, beginning in verse 13, the cleansing of the temple, a familiar story. The Jewish Passover was near, so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found people selling oxen, sheep, and doves. He also found the money changers sitting there. After making a whip of cords, he drove everyone out of the temple with their sheep and oxen. He also poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. He told those who were selling doves, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace." All the disciples remembered this. It was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So the Jews replied to him, "What sign will you show us for doing these things and completely trashing our temple?" I added the last part. Jesus answered.
So that was the sign.
Yeah, you need another sign? Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, I will raise it up in 3 days." And the Jews said, "This temple took 46 years to build, and you will raise it in 3 days." But he was speaking of the temple of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the statement he made. While he was in Jerusalem during the Passover festival, many believed in his name when they saw the signs he was doing. Jesus, however, would not entrust himself to them, since he knew them all, and because he did not need anyone to testify about man, for he himself knew what was in man. Okay, temple is a very, very significant thing in the Jewish religion and society. What is significant of the temple? Why is the temple significant? Let's throw a little bit of background in on what is going on here in the exchanging of things going on in the temple. There's a couple things. One is, as Gordon mentioned, that it allows the convenience for pilgrims to come in and purchase their sacrifice there instead of having to transport their sacrifice with them as they traveled what could be multiple days. 2, there is a temple tax that every male is supposed to pay annually, and the temple would not handle pagan money, and so you had to exchange your money into temple money to pay your temple tax. Also, the priests of the temple had the ability to flunk any animal that came in for sacrifice. So if you had brought your lamb, goat, ox, whatever, the 40 miles that you just had to travel to get to Jerusalem, and the inspector looks at it and says, "No, this is blemished," they could flunk it. Now you have to replace it with something else. So this is what is all going on in the courtyard of the temple at this particular time. One of the accounts of the cleansing of the temple, and the cleansing of the temple shows up in all 4 Gospels. One of them says, "You have made my Father's house a den of thieves," which would imply that there's some usury going on here, whether that be an exchange rate or whether that be in inspection of animals. We don't really know, but there appears to be something going on here that really should not be going on other than providing a service for pilgrims coming in. So that's your background on what the transactions that are going on here. The temple is significant for multiple reasons to the Jews because, one, it represents the presence of God. It is also the center of worship for them. Remember, they have to go to the temple. And in chapter 5, John 5, Jesus will take this issue up with the woman at the well. Remember her comment? You Jews say you have to worship in the temple. We say you can worship on this mountain.
Yes.
And it also is the center of their society and their culture. Because of how God-centered this is, this really becomes their social location. So the temple is extremely significant to these people. Okay, what is significant of the cleansing of the temple? We touched on this when we did Christology, but we will touch on it again. There is a belief that the Messiah would come and restore the true worship in the temple. This is based on a prophecy coming out of Malachi 3:1. See, I am going to send my messenger, and he will clear the way before me. Then the Lord you seek will suddenly come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant you delight in, see, he is coming, says the Lord of armies. And so there was a belief among the Jews that the Messiah, when he showed up, he's going to step into the temple and he is going to reintroduce true worship. It's very significant that Jesus comes in and he cleanses the temple. Now, this next one brings us to a real interesting question that has been debated and continues to be debated by scholars and commentaries, and that is, was it cleaned once or was it cleaned twice? Because all the synoptics put the cleansing of the temple at the end of Jesus' ministry. He comes in on the triumphant entry, and he cleans the temple. Yet John has it right off the bat. So that now throws in a real interesting question. Was it done once or was it done twice? Okay, the case for each one. The case for two cleansings. It announces his ministry. It concludes his ministry, kind of like bookends. Okay? We're going to start by cleaning the temple. We're going to finish by cleaning the temple. It sets up his whole internal ministry, all right? The people who also say that there are two cite the differences in the accounts. John talks about making a cord of whips. John also mentions ox, which none of the other accounts mention. Okay, so that's the case for two cleanings, cleansings, whatever you want to call it. The case for one cleansing. If he had done it before, they would have been ready for him the second time. Because they're not happy about this. And we see that in all four accounts. They're not happy about this cleansing of the temple thing. And he walks in there and he makes a mess. Okay. I had a friend of mine from one of my classes one time send me a meme one time, and it said, WWJD sometimes means turning over tables and chasing people around with a whip. So if they'd done it twice, they would have been. If he'd done it already once, they would have been ready for him to come back in and do it again. Additionally, another case for only having one cleansing is that he had no following to speak of that we know of at the end of chapter 2. Okay, he's done one miracle. He's got a handful of disciples. We don't think he even has all 12 at this point in time. He hasn't done much, and he doesn't have really much of a following. In the synoptics, basically he's a country bumpkin rabbi, and honestly, they would have probably taken care of him. In Mark's account, Mark says they tried to arrest him, but they couldn't because they were afraid of the crowds. Okay. Personally, I think it was one. And part of that is there's nothing that ties the chronology there. There's nothing in the previous, story that says he then went to Jerusalem. It's just simply there's a cold break, and then it simply goes into the story of the cleansing of the temple, and then there is a cold break, and we go into chapter 3. There's nothing there that implies that these are in order. We have to remember that John is not writing a biography. John is writing a textbook. He is writing a textbook on theology. And therefore, he is going to pull things from where he wants to pull them and put them in where he thinks they're appropriate. Another reason why, that's why I think that there's only one. Now, what is he saying when he takes this story and brings it way to the front of the ministry of Jesus? Well, there's a couple things we can probably glean from that. 19, destroy this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. That statement is unique to John. Jews say 46 days, you're going to raise it in 3. He was speaking of the temple of his body. Cover that one in just a minute. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered he said that. John just introduced the resurrection. He is in chapter 2 of his textbook, and he just introduced the resurrection. He's already talked about the incarnation. He did that in the very beginning of John 1. He also has introduced the atoning sacrifice. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. He has introduced that, and now he introduces the resurrection. And he hasn't even gotten into the 3rd chapter yet. Okay? Right on John, yeah, exactly. John is building, like they teach you how to write a thesis in college, for those of us who remember college, right? You start with your initial points. I am going to prove A, B, C, D. Okay, and that's kind of what he is doing right here. I am proving A, B, C, and D. We just got to D. In Mark's account, 14:58, we heard him say, I will destroy this. This is during the trial of Jesus. Mark's account 14. We heard him say, I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made by hands. That comes from Mark's account in the trial. Let's work through this a little bit. Why is this here and now? We covered part of that already. Is he just introduced the resurrection. He just introduced that he is going to raise Jesus from the dead. It's kind of like, you're watching a movie or something like that, and they show you a little clip of what's going to happen farther on, and you're like, whoa, that's cool, that's going to happen. And then you have to wait for the next hour and a half while it builds it up and how that's going to happen. Maybe you guys don't watch movies like that, I don't know. One of the other things that kind of caught my attention was 21, where he says, he was speaking of the temple of his body. Okay, where's the temple at when John writes this? John writes this in 90 or 100 AD. What's the temple in 100 AD?
Ruins, right?
Ruins. Temple was destroyed in AD 70. Okay, so when he writes this, he is saying, he is now giving them, because what was the purpose of the temple? What was the significance of the temple? It was the presence of God. It was the center of worship. And he just said, what? I am the presence of God, the temple of my body. I am the presence of God. I am the center of worship. He redefines, he takes what was the temple, the physical temple, and he turns it into the spiritual temple that we know. Everybody follow that one? Once again, he's redefining what they know and they understand. He is in the process of not giving you a biography. He is in the process, he's not saying on June 5th at 2 o'clock, Jesus did this. He is saying, this is what we believe. Everybody get that one? I am the new temple is essentially what I think he is saying. Okay, great. Any other comments on that one? Okay. I want to go back to where we were before, because I love Mary's faith in this whole situation. Mary says, going back to the water and the wine miracle, Mary says, okay, dudes, with the cute little tuxedo bow ties like servants have. Okay, maybe not.
Wait, what?
Do whatever he says to do. And walks away. Well, I assume she walks away. I don't really know if she walks away or not. But basically, that's kind of what it appears. It appears it's like, he's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
You do what he says. I'm going to go socialize. That's how I look at this scene, okay? That's how I see that. He hasn't done any miracles that we know of to this point. Mary has seen...
Mary already knows, but no.
There are some accounts of Gospels that did not make our canon that show he does do miracles as he's growing up as a child, but those are not accepted. Mary knows who he is. Mary remembers the message from Gabriel. She remembers the Immaculate Conception. She remembers that. She remembers that. Yeah, she was there. She remembers that lovely manger that they were born in. But Mary walks up, says, he's going to take care of this, leaves it at his feet, to coin a phrase, walks off. My question is, how do we get to that point in our own lives? How do we get to that point in our own spiritual lives where we can be like Mary and we can say, okay, I know God's got this, and walk off and go socialize or whatever we do. Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. Intimate relationship with God. You know, you asked me to spell a whole bunch of big words there, Gordon. How do we build that? Let's pull that thread. How do we build the intimate relationship with God? Okay, good. Denying ourselves. Sitting still, being in His presence. Okay, be still and knowing that I'm God. Yeah. Prayer. Okay, prayer's good. Yes, very good. Faith.
Believing He exists.
Okay. Let's pull faith for a minute. How do we grow our faith? We all want more faith. We all want to be that person of faith who stands up in front of the prophets of Baal and calls down fire. Oh, God, I love that story. And we all want to be that. How do we get there? Okay, the example I like to use, faith is a muscle. It has to be built. You can't walk into the gym and expect to bench press 350 pounds. Well, okay, most people can't. I don't know. There's maybe a few. Aaron might be able to. You have to. If I walked into the gym and said, "Okay, I want to bench press 350 pounds," what would happen? They would start me out at like 50, but what they would do is they would start you. They would work you up, and eventually you can build the muscles up, and eventually you get to the point where you can do that. Faith is a muscle, and we build our faith. Larryism. You build your faith slowly and in the small things, and that's how we grow our faith. That's how we increase the faith muscle, so that when the big giant things come along, we're not washed away in the storm, because we have taken these little things and we have committed those and we have trusted God in those occasions, and we can look back at those and we can say, you know what, God took care of that little thing. Like, okay, an example was we were less than a week away from, going on our spring break trip, and we didn't have anybody to take care of the animals. And so we were like praying. We're like, okay, God, someone needs to take care of the animals. And we go like, okay, Ginger's daughter said, okay, I'll take care of the animals. Yay, answer prayer. Okay, it's a small thing, right? But it builds our faith. When we see how God has tackled the small things in life, it helps us trust Him for the big things in life. Faith is a muscle, and we have to build it, and we have to keep building it. Someone a long time ago encouraged me was to keep a prayer journal, was to keep a journal of all my prayer requests in it, and to go back through and to see and to look at where hindsight's 20/20. You can go back and you can look and you can say, you know what? God got me through that. You know what? God showed up there, and at the time I wasn't sure He was going to, but He did. I also journal. I don't do it regular. I don't do it every day because it gets weird if you do it every day. For me, anyway. But today I ate cornflakes. No, but I do it when I have something that I want to think about, when I want to look at, when I want to remember, in a particular time, if I'm particularly happy, particularly sad, particularly burdened, or whatever. And that's when I tend to write in my in my journal, and you go back, and it's the same thing. You go back through that, and you're like, I remember when I felt like that. I remember when, we were being persecuted for starting a church in a commercial zone in Monte Vista, Colorado. Okay? And I can remember how God worked that out. And that gives me, is just as Anna was saying, that gives me confidence that God will take care of what I've got today. Think about that. How can we grow our faith? How should we grow our faith? We can ask God to show us, okay? Give us more faith, but that, in some ways I think that's kind of like asking for patience. Be careful when you ask for patience, because it usually involves trying. Think about that as we go through this. How can we be more like Mary, who had complete faith and trust that Jesus would fix it and that He would take care of it? And think about the things that we worry about. Think about, what keeps you up at night. What do we worry about that steals our peace? And how can we have faith to God that He will take care of that? Yeah.